Hello and welcome back to Better Than Adventure. If you hear from the last video, congratulations. You watched a video and you clicked on the next one. If you're not, maybe some of the stuff I'll mention makes a little bit less sense to you, but, okay, that's correct. I wanted to talk about something kind of funny, which is a continuation of the last video. And it's just kind of how I've noticed that ever since the internet became... I don't know why. I don't know when it even happened. But at some point in time online, opinions became very unipolar. I think that's the word for it. What I'm trying to say is that at some point, people stopped having opinions and started absorbing opinions from people who they think are more qualified than them. I think that is the best way to describe. And just by mentioning this, I'm pretty sure you can think of at least one example where, like, you've seen this happen. May it be with, like, a movie you liked, or may it be with, you know, something else. I personally try my best. It's not impossible. It's not always 100%, right? You'll always be influenced by what other people have to say on a subject. However, I did these wrong. Oh my god. Okay, hold on. But even so, it is important to understand that, like, at some point, you will run into just kind of a brick wall, right? And, eventually, you won't know why you have the opinions you do. I try my best to only have opinions that I came up with, for the simple reason that then I can kind of own them, and I can always stand behind what I say. But to some people, this isn't important, and how those people live their lives is very confusing and concerning to me, but hey, if they can live with it, I guess I'm fine with it too. But yeah, like, so many times have I seen people form opinions on things they have no idea about, or just in general give their uninformed take based on what they've heard online. An interesting thing which I've seen is, if you haven't noticed, I made a couple videos going, well, actually a lot of the technical videos I made were about the 5th generation of video games. And one interesting comment I got multiple times, actually a lot of times, was whenever I said it was overlooked, some people who, you know, obviously big fans of it, like me, would say that I'm, you know, smoking. They'd say I'm stupid, I'm wrong. How could you even say that? And let me tell you something. First of all, I am so excited that more and more, like, you know, retro stuff is, actually embracing the 5th gen. It's so nice and fun. But there's something people need to know. And it's that even now, like most retro gaming discussions in the mainstream, not in our little, like, communities of 5th gen fans, of people who make homebrew, no. The mainstream only considers, like, the SNES retro, like the NES, you know? Like, if you look up the So Retro memes, where people don't actually know what the fuck retro is. The truth is that people who like the 5th generation, because of how weird culture is, because, you know, for a while there was, like, culture and nostalgia, but now people are nostalgic for 80s nostalgia. And I completely see where they're coming from. Because for me, and for a lot of people, like, especially, you know, Zoomers and such, a lot of the time, our first interaction with, retro, quote-unquote, was 80s nostalgia in the 2000s from people like the AVGN, or, like, 80s, 90s, you know, that sort of stuff. So, when I'm nostalgic for a lot of the retro stuff, I'm more nostalgic for watching, like, 240p Let's Plays with the buzzing in the background from the fucking 60 Hz mains hum than I am for, like, actual real hardware. Because, you know, you're nostalgic about how you first, you know, interacted with the medium. And because of that, everybody's definition of retro is kind of different. And what you've got to understand is that most people just don't care. Like, talk with the average person, and they will be completely confused as to what games, like, you're playing. Like, when somebody asks me what I think the best game was, and I mention it's like, oh, overall, I don't know, but I think Panzer Dragoon Saga is, like, fucking up there, they just look at me like I was speaking French, and if they were Spanish. Like, they just wouldn't know what I was talking about, because to them, it's like, what, this is some kind of pixel game? Because, you know, nobody understands. But you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where I personally may be a huge fan of this thing, and I'm surrounded by a lot of people who are huge fans of this sort of stuff. But then I also have friends who, you know, just don't get it. They will hear me talk about this stuff and they're like, yeah, cool, but I play League of Legends. And they just don't care. And I'll be honest, I feel the same way about stuff like League of Legends. Like, it's cool, but I would never play it in my life unless, like, somebody wanted to play it with me and I just had nothing else to do. You know, because realistically, even if I know nothing about the game, it'll suck. I mean, if you want to play something with a friend, that makes it better. I mean, fucking playing Bubsy 3D with someone is a lot more fun than playing it normally. At least because Bubsy is actually kind of playable. You know, this, or like 06, this doesn't work with, like, if you want to finish the Fifth Element or Mortal Kombat Special Forces, which that's a spoiler for a One Day Maybe video, but I'd have to play through a bunch of horrible PS1 games. I guess to reveal to you, I've been compiling a list of... I saw Jason Graves do this. It was like, he took a bunch of... and he took the idea from... what's his name? He took the idea from Sean Johnson, so I guess the idea is going full circle, where Sean tried to see the worst PS1 games. Then I wanted to do the Sean thing, but I didn't want to do his... you know, I wanted to do it wider, because I saw the way that Jason Graves did it, and I thought that his idea gave it more value, so I made my own formula, and I started work on my own video, which got to me testing out, like, the first 5 games, and then I realized, holy shit, this is a mountain of garbage. I'm never gonna get it finished. And realistically, I will probably have to, like... the way I see it, okay, is one of the things I also did was I didn't just look at English-speaking lists. Now, to tell you straight up, there aren't that many worst games of all times lists anyways, right? Because best game is more interesting to a lot of people than worst game. Because worst game is one of those things where, like, yeah, sure, I'm curious, but who cares? I'm not gonna play it. Meanwhile, best game, you know, that'd be something you'd actually check out, so more people are willing to click on it. So in a lot of languages, like even my native language, I couldn't find a list of, like, you know, a numerical list of the worst PS1 games. And I had to double check a few times, and I had to null some, like, articles which were just stealing it from Metacritic. Or from, like, I think one of them may have stolen it from Moby, I'm not sure. But yeah, I avoid using Moby because it's kind of... it makes too much sense. I specifically wanted to make, like, a list that was built off of what people think. And, you know, that's why I don't want to just copy Metacritic, because a game's Metacritic score doesn't really match how people think about the game that much. And real reviews can often be fucked from back in the day, because some companies back then just didn't care, and they would just give the game a middling score without ever playing it to just ship the review out, because it was far harder to fact-check them. Well, you think IGN is, like, bad because they gave a game a bad score that you think was really good? Well, back in the day, the companies that existed back then would straight up lie, and you couldn't prove it, because you would have to buy the game yourself, which costs money, and you couldn't fact-check them by looking at a Let's Play, because it was 1997. The closest you would have to check if what they're saying was true was IGN, because they had online articles, and sometimes, like, fucking 40 by 60 shitty little bitmap pictures, which were, at the time, revolutionary. But yeah, like, overall, people don't know how good we have it today, and how bad it used to be. Kinda sad, honestly, but, you know, it is what it is. It's kind of like, also nostalgia plays such a big role in how people see stuff. Now, spoiler alert from me, I am a, kind of down-low Pokemon fan. To where I really like Pokemon, but I don't talk about it much, because, a lot of the time, if you talk with people about Pokemon, you get the same, like, recycled slop that, you see people talk about. Basically, okay, how do I explain this? There are people who talk about Pokemon who are Pokemon fans, and people who aren't. People who are Pokemon fans will talk about Pokemon. The people who don't like Pokemon will not care about Pokemon until it's time to get some clicks by saying it's bad. And the truth is, a lot of the complaints I see about Pokemon are funny, because a lot of them just show that the people making them don't know what they're talking about. I replied to people with this before, I thought about making a video about it, I wrote, like, a script most of the way, but then I realized, man, I don't want to fucking do it. Because if you think about it, right, Gen 1 was known for how buggy and broken it was. That is what it's famous for, like, for what most people are concerned. Gen 2 and Gen 1 was so unbalanced and broken. Like, we're talking dragon types who can't learn dragon moves. Gen 3 was the first game that was, excluding the berry glitch, functional, and had mostly working mechanics with okay movesets. And Gen 4 was the first game with an actual plot, and with actual, you know, and with the physical special split, which basically ensured the game was now functional. Oh, fuck, that was a mistake. Hold on, I just opened, like, 3 different windows. Okay, there we go. You know, like, and Gen 5 was the first Pokemon game which had an actual story. So, realistically, Pokemon was only really good from Gen 5 onwards. TM, no, I'm kidding. But, like, Pokemon truly became what it is today in Gen 5. And for every subsequent generation, it got better. Gen 6, you know, improved graphics, somewhat improved story, and overall, that's the general vibe I get from, like, the Pokemon generations. Oh, fuck. Wait, this is... Huh, that's... Actually, wait. I'm gonna rip out, like, this first, and then I'll see what I need to do. This is 5 blocks. Okay. But yeah, the general issue which I have with Pokemon is that I feel like they just kind of are at a bit of a time crunch. And I feel like they don't add enough mechanics that really flesh out the world, you know? That is my issue. My issue isn't that, like, what are the complaints of Pokemon? Let me try to remember. Oh yeah, like, they introduced the open world, they look... By the way, the original games are fucking hideous. Like, the Game Boy ones compared to what was out back then, and buggy as shit. Pokemon has never been a very pretty-looking game. I know it's popular to say, like, actually, Pokemon looks bad. And it doesn't look good, but it doesn't look like an asset flip. And that's kind of the thing which I need people to keep in mind. A lot of people only see low quality when it's down to, like, 3D graphics, right? Like, people know what a bad 3D-looking game is, but often they don't apply the same understanding to 2D games, and, like, Pokemon was never an advanced-looking 3D game. It had, like, really nice-looking Pokemon sprites after Gen 3 fixed all the hideous Game Boy ones. But man, the art style was always kinda simple, and if you look at Gen 9, which is, at the time of filming, the last Pokemon game that came out, the Pokemon are the nicest looking part of it. They look so nice. And the environment around them looks kinda like ass. And that's how it always kind of was. And I've seen people complain the game doesn't look like fucking Red Dead Redemption. But nobody wants that. Like, nobody who actually likes Pokemon wants that. This is just people who don't like Pokemon talking about how much they would want it not to be Pokemon. And the truth is, the reason why all of the Pokemon games are selling so well isn't because everyone except you, the Pokemon hater, speaking to, you know, the people who like that, it isn't because, like, the Pokemon haters are just, like, a minority and everybody is stupid. It's because there's something in there that people like and that they keep coming back to. And what people like and keep coming back to is the Pokemon gameplay loop, the stuff they like, the fun experiences you can have. There's also kind of an issue where Pokemon is an RPG, which a lot of people don't treat as an RPG. A lot of the time when I see discussion about what Pokemon, like, should do, they don't understand that Pokemon is an RPG. So whatever they say ends up feeling, like, a little bit stupid. Hold on, let me just see. This is at 400, so what's happening at 400 over there? You know, Pokemon is an RPG, and as an RPG, it needs RPG mechanics. And a lot of the time when I see, when people talk about what they want a Pokemon game to be, I just say people want a game which isn't Pokemon. People don't want an RPG. People just want a game where you have a bunch of these virtual pets you can catch. And that's fine. But what you want isn't Pokemon. It's a different game. And being mad at Pokemon that it's this other thing, it's just stupid. Or being angry that, like, oh my god, this game is so difficult because I can't use the same move 50 times. It's just, you know, a lot of the time, the people who make those kinds of complaints just don't understand what the game is. And I'm aware that a lot of people just want the pet aspect of a Pokemon game, and they're complaining because it's not like that. But imagine if I said that the thing that I liked in Dark Souls was like... Well, I've never played Dark Souls, so imagine if I said the thing that I liked in Demon Souls was just looking at the environment and collecting the weapons and not actually fighting. If I said FromSoft should make the game appeal to me, I'd get buried alive. Rightfully so. Because even if I personally may not like Demon's Souls, seriously, I can accept that it's something I don't like, and that it's not a issue with, you know, FromSoft, it's an issue with me not liking the game that much. But when a game becomes more casual, like Minecraft or like Pokemon, people will just take whatever they think of, right? They'll just take any old idea, and they'll say, okay, I want my gameplay experience to be more like this, and therefore, I want everybody else to suffer who plays the game for what it is and not for what I want it to be, right? I mean, if you want a hard challenge, fucking play Pokemon Run and Bun. If you want a game where you just collect little pets and explore, like, there's fucking Palworld if you want that. Even though Palworld's gameplay loop is something completely alien to Pokemon, realistically. And the only things it shares are, like, the cute little critters. But still, like, generally speaking, the people who hate Pokemon for the simple reason that it's not a game they like. And no amount of pleasing them could ever change their minds because they just don't like Pokemon. The only way to please Pokemon haters is to make a game which isn't Pokemon. Similarly to how, if there are people who don't like Minecraft, the only way to fix Minecraft is to make a game which isn't Minecraft. If you want to add, like, leveling to Minecraft more than just for enchanting, if you want to add real bosses, progression, why are you playing Minecraft? You know, like, why are you trying to take a game which you don't like and morph it into something else when you can find another game which fits the things that you want? I could play Dark Souls, add building to Dark Souls, I don't know. And realistically, there's nothing you can really do to convince most people. The biggest issue which I've seen, like the biggest reasoning flaw that I've seen people make, is the idea that you can just kind of convince people by making good arguments. And let me be real with you, that's a really good fairy tale. But most people are not convinced by arguments. Most people are just convinced by their quote-unquote gut feeling TM. And that's stupid. But it's the way humans are. Humans are stupid. It's kind of like, part of growing up for me was understanding that the way that I feel can sometimes be wrong, right? Understanding that whenever I see something, I have to understand that, for instance, whenever I see a headline, and this isn't turning into a Ground News or a Morning Brew segment, I have no idea how Morning Brew works, actually, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why Ground News exists. Who is that? Who is Ground News for? Oh, do you want, you need to make sure that there's a bias. There may be a bias in your news sources, where some of your news sources are saying, glory to the Emperor, but the other news source is saying, the Emperor has no clothes, so, you should make sure that you read both of them. No, Ground News fucking sucks. That's my personal take on Ground News. It's just, I don't know. But as we are, like, living through events, as we always have, people have gotta realize that, like, you should just kind of trust what random people say less and less. Especially as we live in an era where it's more and more profitable to lie. And the thing is, right? When I say it's more and more profitable to lie, a lot of the time people look at it from, like, a political aspect, which is correct, right? A lot of people will lie to you about political stuff in order to make you feel like, yeah, he's the guy, he's correct, so they could, like, you know, sell you their water filters. But it's not just about that. It's also the fact that very often Like, people will just lie to you about interpersonal stuff as well. You know, like, some people will just say, hey, buddy, I am your friend here, and I'm selling you my water filter. But, like, realistically, you don't need water filters. And the guy trying to sell to you water filters is just trying to kind of be like, you know, hey, buddy, buy my thing. You're correct. And yeah, sometimes it's done with, like, political things, but often it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's just, like, a guy being like, hey, buddy, I have the good take on the video game. You should listen to my takes and only my takes, because only I'm correct. And some people will just then uncritically accept that and watch their videos. And they'll have such, like, tangled fan bases that people will just have a negatively polarized reaction to you talking about the person negatively. Even if, otherwise, if it was anyone else making an argument like that, they would, you know, hear you out because they think it's their guy. It's my problem with people like Video Game Donkey, where, like, you know, for instance, it's something that I respect Scott the Woz for. Again, I think I mentioned this in the last video, where he made a video called Not an RPG Guy, where the entire point was that he never liked RPGs, because I guess he has bad taste, sarcasm alert. But, like, you know, that never stopped him from, you know, that never clouded his view, I guess. Even if he doesn't like it, he understands that other people like it. And that is just something you gotta respect. Because that is such a high level of cognitive function compared to, like, how most people see this stuff, that it's really nice to see. Because, at some point in the video, a being from the heavens begins talking to him. And it's Video Game Donkey, and he said he made RPGs bad on purpose, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the issue with Video Game Donkey is, kind of simple. And it's that, he doesn't like RPGs, so he'll basically fucking slander the games, and specifically try to make them worse than what they are. And it's not just with RPGs, mind you. Like, you could make a video, you could make multiple videos going over all the stupid stuff he's said and done. Like, you know, whenever he just... And it's kind of like humor versus honesty in a review, right? Because sometimes you want to add some hyperbole. For some things, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're reviewing big rigs over-the-road racing, does it really matter if you're a little bit hyperbolic about how bad the game controls? When even if you're not exactly one-to-one with, you know, the accuracy of how bad it feels, the controls still control like shit. You know, that's one side of the things. But again, on the other side, sometimes your review can be the thing which makes or breaks a game. And if you're not taking your job as a reviewer seriously enough to care about if the things that you're saying are true, then why should I care about your review? Like, if you're making a video saying that a game is bad when you don't give a shit, why should I care then about, like, the thing that you made? It's one of those eternally frustrating things to me. Because so much of gaming discourse is controlled by, like, a relatively small group of creators who basically, you know, have the power to make or break how people see stuff. Mario 64 is an interesting example of this, because the game itself is good, but people overrepresent what it did by a lot. Because what it did was basically huge by basically spawning the collectathon genre, right? And, like, it was essentially a very different view of 3D, like, platforming than most other games at the time did. Because a lot of other games kind of saw 3D, right? Like Crash Bandicoot, really fun game, but its approach to 3D was a platformer in 3D, right? Meanwhile, a game like, that was basically a similar approach taken by a game like Jumping Flash. The way Mario 64 differs is that Mario 64 came at it from the other side of the equation. It came at it with the idea of, what if we made a 3D game that was a platformer? And both of these games are completely different in execution. One of them, that being, Mario, is a lot more exploration-based. It's a lot more, wonderful, if I could... it fills you with wonder, trying to figure out what's where, trying to explore the levels. While Crash is a lot more arcadey. It's a lot more about, here's a level, here's a challenge, and that's why the control schemes are so different. Crash's controls are very limited and very precise, while with Mario's controls, well, you can get them to be precise, of course, like you've seen the absolutely mad things speedrunners and TASes are doing, but realistically, the idea with Mario 64 is to have, like, relatively imprecise platforming in a very open game where it can feel like every step you make towards, the goal is, a sort of discovery. Meanwhile, Crash is a lot more, here's a goal, get to it in any way you can, have fun, good luck. And what I'm trying to state is that both of these approaches are, like, very interesting, but clearly one of them resonated with a lot of people more. And clearly, one of them didn't create 3D gaming, and neither did the other one. It's kind of like my specific issue of Mario 64 that a lot of people don't get, is I don't like the, like, sorta narrative around, like, 3D gaming before and after. Because what people fail to understand, most of all, is how huge 3D was back then. Like, I understand if you were only born, like, in today's day and age, you wouldn't know how, back in the 90s, everybody already knew that 3D was, the way things were going. That was basically already decided upon by 1994. It's just that by 96, a lot of the projects which started development back then ended up actually coming out because, like, it took developers back then, like, 2 years to make the games. Wait, also, I'm out of, well, that's not good. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's like, Mario 64, for as fun as it was basically just another stepping stone towards, like, real sort of 3D. And Sunshine was a step backwards, because holy shit, Sunshine was genuinely so disappointing. So disappointing. I understand if you grew up with the game, it's like, oh my god, it's Sunshine, but like, man, it's disappointing. It's the most linear 3D Mario game. I don't want to get into it. Maybe I could... I say this with a lot of stuff, but I could genuinely make videos on so many topics if I... that I actually care about if I really wanted to, but... It's one of those things where I don't think there's that much to be said, really. And I'm gonna be honest, I really enjoyed my time with Mario 64, minus some of the later levels. But overall, for what it is, it's a really fun game. The fact I gave up on Sunshine so much that I never actually even thought about doing an LP of it just proves that, man, I didn't like it, and I considered playing Sticker Star. I think I at one point said if I ever get 100,000 subs, because that's something I'll never reach, Sticker Star, but I don't know. Now I'm scared. Maybe one day I'll eat those words, but not for now. Anyways, yeah, we're running out of stuff, but hey, things are improving. We just need like another one of these in the middle, right? Wait, actually, let's go back up and finish that. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, by the way, another thing is, there exists a German bathtub car. Well, that's what I call it. It was a World War II invention, so we know it's stupid. But, I have to just mention this because I saw it today. It was basically like a bathtub with wheels, and it was an amphibious car. It's called, like, the, Schwimmwagen, which literally means swimming car. Which, I don't know, it just kind of looks cute. It looks like a fucking bathtub. And there is something really funny about vehicles which kind of look like bathtubs. I don't know. I'm also, I wouldn't call myself a car guy, because, I don't know. I'm more of like an engineering guy, I guess. Like, my favorite car of all time is the Suzuki Cappuccino. It weighs, like, 725 kilos, right? 63 horsepower, but A, goddamn is it adorable, and B, people have modded it with a turbocharged Hayabusa with 400 horsepower, which basically makes it a fucking death machine, because, well, if you think about it, it is just a casket on wheels. It has 400 horsepower. Genuinely, you're at that level where how much you had for lunch, like, will affect the car's launch performance. But yeah, anyways, I'll probably put something up here. I'll see. See you next time when we do more of this. Goodbye.